So, why don't we start by hearing a little bit about you and about your place in Fairfield?
Interesting question. My place in Fairfield. Huh. Like, you mean like socioeconomically or like
I guess maybe sort of like what Fairfield means to you and your path and why you're there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sure. So do you want me to give you like a history, a brief history overview bio thing? Is that helpful? Okay. Um, so I was born and raised in Fairfield. Uh, and I did the whole kind of K through 12. And then in college, I went to animation school. I did a year in Canada. I did a year in Vancouver, studied traditional animation. And my plan was to kind of get into the industry and never look back. Um, didn't happen. Uh, so my background is in illustration and visual storytelling. I always wanted to be a comic book artist or cartoonist when I grew up, and then I discovered animation and realized that that was an equally effective way of communicating, of telling stories, of sharing um, sort of like meaningful, deep, life affirming stories that I was seeing. Um, and I thought, well, what better way to kind of get my own story out there than to get into animation and just create my own thing. Um, and so when I got back, I not that long, maybe it was like the next year I started teaching and I was teaching I taught an animation workshop camp summer thing for kids. Probably a couple years after I graduated. And then I finished MIU, came back to Fairfield. Um, a lot of things I'm sure happened. I don't remember very well. This is a long time ago. And then I got into the industry, but I kind of did it on my own. I went to LA. I found it really distasteful and just not the energy that I was looking for.
Mm.
And it just made me feel like no one's really doing it for the right reasons. Everyone's in it for the money. This is a massive industry. I don't want anything to do with like this kind of thing. And so I just became independent freelancer and I did a bunch of album art, sort of Photoshop work, and then got into uh, this big project I did for almost a year and a half, 2 years almost. It was a documentary. It was like a kind of like a documentary film about Native American land claims and reparations being paid from. It's a very strange film. It's a documentary slash comedy slash sort of like political commentary slash uh, culture class commentary. And anyhow, it's very interesting. He's a strange guy, Mark Halberstadt. I mean, you may have met him. He dresses all in one color every day of the week. He has different suits for every color every day of the week. Anyhow, so he hired me to do this large film, and I spent a year working on animation. It's glued to a computer screen. And then I left to try to go back to LA to try to get, because I was doing a lot of freelance stuff. I thought, well, maybe I could like work for a smaller studio, just kind of like get my foot in the door. Just maybe that would be fun to work with people who are passionate about my thing. I went back and it was the same thing. I was like, I don't want to be here. These companies are just burning people out. They're taking people right out of school and just running them into the ground. And I was seeing how unhappy the younger people there were at these studios that were working. And I actually toured like 4 studios. Um, and one was Nickelodeon, one was it was like a subsidiary of Nickelodeon. And then this very cool studio that actually was the one I wanted to go to, but it was just people weren't taking breaks to eat. Students were like living in there. It was just like kind of a strange place and not my scene. And I grew up taking care of myself and eating really healthy and going to bed on time. And it was just like, this is just the counter opposite, right? So, so I was a little jaded after I came back the second time, still feeling like this isn't really what I want to do. Maybe I'm in the wrong industry. Maybe I should be working for myself, but I don't know how to do that. Um, so I did a lot of things. I did video editing. Uh, I started working in for like music videos, and I started doing small scale stuff, little projects. Some in town, but some clients out of town, but mostly local people or friends that I knew. And then I got obsessed with comics. I got back into. I was like, I don't really don't. I'd rather be drawing. I'd rather be spending my time with like the paper and the page and the enjoyment of the process of something tactile. And I was just getting tired and more computer time. So I said, well, maybe I should just get back into my roots, which was like comics and cartoons. So I really just started doing it on my own, just creating comics and I was really passionate about it. I thought maybe I'd do like a web comic or a graphic novel, And and I was applying for grad schools and I was looking everywhere and I found eventually, after looking for weeks, maybe it was like months, I found a school in California that had a master's in comics. And I
That's
was
cool.
like, this is really weird. It was the first year they had ever done that. And it was low residency. So I could be in Fairfield, but I could be, getting my degree, going to school. And it just seemed so perfect. And I talked to the instructors and they were like very grounded, very like the guy had the idea to come up with a program at Burning Man like like a vision he had, It was like we need education around comics and all the schools are too expensive. And there's only one in the country, which is in New York. And it's like really kind of like they only accept sort of the best of the best. And uh so I got in after the first year was full. Then I went to India and I said, well, maybe I just, really need to focus on my spirituality. Maybe everything will work out if I just go deep and I practice yoga all the time. And it's things got really interesting because um I met a teacher from India who came to Fairfield to be a student, but he saw that the yoga and the techniques and the practices were so light like they're very good for Westerners, but like he was born in an ashram and he was just like, this is very strange that like we have these young 20-year-olds and they want to do so much more. They're having to do their own research and their own stuff and look into other things just because they're not getting like the hardcore version, the like full immersion where you're doing like 4 hours of practice a day, unless you're on a retreat. So anyway, he was a really interesting guy, and he became my spiritual teacher for like 5 years. And he taught these yoga teacher trainings where students would go at like 4 in the morning, and they would do an hour of physical practice, an hour of study, and an hour of like pranayama and other type of stuff. And then they'd go to school, and they did that for like months. And anyway, so I ended up in the second or third yoga teacher training with him. Totally got obsessed with Ashtanga yoga, Kriya, different pranayama techniques. Just like it took my whole spiritual practice to the next level. And I totally forgot about grad school, totally forgot about anything. I went to India. I was planning on living there with my teacher for a while. And then I got this email out of the blue. Hey, we really liked, like you sent this great portfolio last time. You should reapply. We really like what you do and you seem really interesting. Maybe you should, try again. I'm like in India, it's like hard to find like stable internet. So I went to some internet cafe and I just like scraped all of this stuff from emails I'd sent from like Google Drive folders and Dropbox folders, and I put together this quick portfolio, and I did it all in like a internet cafe in India. Like it took me like 7 hours because the internet was so slow, and it was so crazy. And And then I resubmitted it. And then they responded almost within a week. And they're like, you're in, you should come. We'd love to have you. We're a small group. There's only going to be like 15 students in this class. Um, when can you get here? Because we're having orientation. Like this was in, I think it was something like it was like a Christmas or it was the end of December or beginning of January or something. And I was there for like 6 weeks in India. And then I had to get home, get all my stuff, and then go to California. And it was like this crazy where I just like came back to Fairfield. I just like got rid of all this stuff. I just like made a plan to move to California and I just like sold everything. And within like a week, I was ready to go. And then I flew out, with a huge camping backpack and just like went to this amazing college. And yeah, it was such a good experience. 3 years, but like low residency. So, but I decided to live there at least for a year to try it out.
So was that recently?
No, no, I graduated in 2017, 2016, 2017, yeah.
Oh, okay. It's a ways back.
A little bit, yeah. hmm Yeah, uh and so I lived in the Bay Area. I was in Alameda, I was in Berkeley. I was living all over the place. And then, I was going through money quick and just like using all my loan money for living expenses and stuff, but really enjoying the class and the program. And the teachers are just amazing. It's CCAC, California College of Arts.
Oh, okay. Heard of it.
Yeah. Anyway, so after that, and like during this period of time, I was just getting really into documenting things. I was doing a lot of video stuff just on my own, just like recording things in nature, recording stuff on my phone, recording conversations with people. I probably have like 200 conversations with people that are around these deeper philosophies and ideas. And I just started collecting, stuff that was happening that I thought that I would want to go back and listen to that was interesting. It had something to do with whatever, like yogic stuff or Vedic knowledge or so anyway, the point of that is I was in grad school, but I was getting really into documenting, and I ended up, um, uh, anyway, long story short, there was a relationship that came out on the scene while I was in grad school, which I was going to stay in California another year, and then I moved back to be in this relationship with um, this girl from Hong Kong whose mother was a financial, like, broker, saleswoman who had this spiritual awakening and created a board game that developed your financial and like it taught you how to live in the world, but like collaborate. You're gonna love this. Collaborate to get you out of the rat race, to get you out of the 9 to 5 grind. And there's a whole philosophy around it. And they created this whole like series of coaches. And so we were working on the US version of the game for like a year and a half. And um, and it was wild. And so all my grad school experience went right into something 180 degrees. It didn't even touch comics for almost 2 years after that because I was just working for her mom and the company. And anyway, um, and it was a very interesting time. I was working harder than ever, but not getting paid because the company was giving me like room and board. So and I was developing this, uh, live-in sort of relationship, and it was intense. And anyway, about a year and a half later, it ended, and I started immediately TAing and working for MIU. And I had done that before. I TA'd a few times, like before grad school, for both art history and Ninka had a creative writing class and a graphic narrative class, which was about creating comics. And so I TA'd for her twice, and then she ended up basically giving me that course to teach. So I basically was like kind of like shoe in. I was already TA. I was like doing a lot of stuff with MIU, and then they just hired me Amin hired me for the department for cinematic arts. And then that was like, I don't know, when I was full time, it was probably like 5 years ago, but it was 7 years, 3.5, 4 years of TAs. TA projects, bunch of different classes, and then I created a podcast to to help with my grieving of the breakup. I created a podcast with all my best friends, and I actually like did it for real, where we had like, equipment and sit down, and I had like a camera, and we like record the whole thing, and I would edit it. And anyway, it was a lot, and I was really obsessed with it. And then they wanted me to create a course for MIU, so I ended up creating the podcasting course for MIU.
Oh, remember hearing about that. And is your podcast still up somewhere?
It's up somewhere. Yeah, it's probably on Spotify. It's called The Free Radicals.
Oh, nice title.
And there was another one that's like a medical podcast, but I don't know if it's still up. They did like only one season, and I did about 20 episodes, 23 episodes or something like that. And then they hired me, and I got really busy, so I kind of had to drop the part-time podcaster, part-time artist, part-time teacher thing, and so I could just focus on teaching and creating courses. So yeah, it was I mean, I like career-wise, it's been really like amazing to have Fairfield's best, I feel. Like I've been around some of the best, like Ninka and Amin, Kuder, and um my teacher, Swami, who now goes by Naresh, but he has like a longer spiritual title. Um, yeah, and I just feel like there have been waves for me that Fairfield has really been there for great periods of time where I really needed community, and like it was just there when I needed it.
That's awesome. Wow, what a story. And does that kind of bring us up to the present? Like, is the podcast class recent or current at all?
Mm,
Is it-
well, not really. I mean, not really. I've been doing much less podcasting. Now I'm going back and I'm starting to do some um okay. So throughout all that time, I was also really fascinated with astrology, with Vedic astrology. I never could quite grasp it because I kind of have a bit of a dyslexia and ADD, and my mind just doesn't like work very well with like, I don't know, uh calculations and memory and like things that, like really having to remember stuff in a certain linear way. I can remember things very strange. Long-term memory is great. Short-term memory for detail stuff, not so great. So I started studying Vedic astrology probably 15 years ago and just had a lot of interest, but didn't really like it didn't catch for me. It never really like I never got it. Like not to the degree that after I started studying with a teacher named Hari, and there was a class that was formed, and at first it was like he it was in person, and we had like 5 people, and then he travels to India all the time to do yagyas and ceremony, and he does these long rituals, these called yagyas with pundits in India. He actually like organizes them, and he's like been doing this a long time for part of his income and his passion. And he taught for 25 years, he's taught astrology, but he's also been a, 40-year Vedic astrologer. So he's pretty knowledgeable. And he gave me, there's levels, right? There's like people who are born into it who are since birth are studying for 50 years. And it's unbelievable the level of depth that people can reach. But I started studying with him. And then about a year after, it was, uh, it was life changing because I finally started to get the pieces that I was missing, the like some of the more complex things that I just thought I'm never going to learn that. That's way too complicated, you know? So we went really deep, and then that class ended due to a lot of things. And then I kept learning and I kept studying, and uh, you know, some people kind of stopped. Some people in that class kind of like they were like satisfied and that's it. I think I went even harder because I was like, I have a theme going on, as you might hear, that like a year and then some major change. Like it'll be like doing this thing for a year full on, and then some massive thing comes in, it completely sweeps me away. And it's a different direction in life. And that just was like kind of has been going on a long time. So I started studying every day, just really kind of practicing things and going really deep into nuance with the basics and just trying to understand like what are the fundamentals of the planets? What are the fundamentals of the signs? What are the houses? What are the, you know, like what are the nakshatras? And each layer can you can spend a lifetime just studying those four things. Um, but I took a lot of time to just kind of like sit with the basics and then I just started doing readings for people and I'm probably like 3 years in where I've been like doing maybe a couple readings a month. And, now it's like more than one a week oftentimes. And it's so fun. I love it. It's kind of this new way of applying my creativity and like my like abstract, my ability to think abstractly, which with my art helps a lot. Like it's just putting it into all these little categories that like before it didn't make sense. Now I get to the chart speaks to you. It starts to talk. It starts to show you things. The more kind of open you are and the more you drop in, it actually has a technique. Astrology is not just like a mental science. It's a spiritual practice and it has a certain level of like purification and like a quality to it that you can cultivate over years and years. So that's been really my passion lately. Like that probably primarily over podcasting, I would say. But um, now that I'm going back and cleaning up my whole portfolio and I'm getting a lot of client work again and illustration, logo design, I'm probably going to do a large animation project early next year. It's interesting because I can never leave one thing too long before the other like before that calls me back. I'll be like, oh, I'm good. I don't need to do animation. And then someone out of the blue will like that I really like working with and like as a person will offer me this like whole project. And I'm just like 100% yes on board with that. And then I kind of have to, you know, like dust off the like animation habits and like put my skills back to use because it's just been so long. And that seems to be the theme. Like I get really deep into something, I kind of let go of something else, and then that comes back full force in this beautiful way. And then I'll let go of this thing, and then that comes back full force. And it's always this kind of like weave between, right now it's astrology, human design, uh, illustration, and soon to be animation. Soon to be animation. And I will say one more thing. I didn't even mention this because I think it's a lot. Like it seems like I'm doing so many disparate things, It's almost like, wow, well, that's like too many things. But I have studied human design for a long time, like probably longer than Vedic astrology. And my energy type is a manifesting generator, which are built for being crazy versatile, like having five different things, two
Mhm.
careers, three like I don't know, projects at any one given time. So when I found that out, it was very reassuring, and I was also like, yes, that is it. And it's almost boring to have one thing, unless it's a very, very, very like the reason I'm into animation probably initially was not just because of the storytelling, but because just to do it, you have to be a drawer, a drafts person, a storyteller. You got to think about anatomy. You got to think about timing. You got to think about like layouts and shots and personality. You have to be an actor. You have to put all these things into one thing, and it's just like unbelievable the amount of, and that's what keeps me happy, having to go and jump around and master all these little skills. Like I love that stuff. So because I have multiple careers and I have multiple tracks I'm working on, uh, it's all becoming synthesized and it's becoming more fun. And I'm not so stressed out about it because now that I'm a little more experienced, I can kind of like, I know as long as I keep one skill fresh, like each year, I do like at least 1 to 3 projects a year in that area. Like I'm good, and I'm gonna keep it'll keep coming back. Um, and I know there's like the jack of trades, master of none thing. Um, but somehow I got really lucky, and I chose things that I was really, really passionate about. Like animation took me down like a 10-year rabbit hole, you know, and podcasting was like probably 4 years. And teaching now has been at least 7 years. And so, and there's a whole nother piece of the puzzle, which is like, I actually really enjoy being in the body and not just having ideas and conceptualizing all these things. A lot of them are very intellectual. And so I practice somatic techniques and somatic therapy pretty extensively, like for the last 5 years. And that's probably what has helped me the most in terms of relaxing into like accepting my eccentricities and my weirdness and being like, this is actually part of who I am and it's okay. And I am learning to, when in doubt, I was up this morning at 3 in the morning, couldn't sleep for no reason. I don't even drink caffeine. Not that I can remember. And all I did was I did a bunch of yoga and I did a bunch of body stuff, body centered, breathing and attending to different areas. And it was just like, all right, this is happening. I'm pivoting to this. This is what I can do. I'm not going to start, you know, podcasting at 4 in the morning. It's just like not the right time, or making art or whatever. Some people like to work late. I don't like to work late. I like to sleep. So
I love the awareness you have of your creative process. It's like you're using a lot of the lingo too that I like to use, like pivoting, like um, when you have so many different things that you're passionate about. I
yeah.
like to call these people pathfinders because they are creating something, like you said, it synthesizes all of its own once you kind of use each one as just important as the other, but you can kind of take a break from it like a mantra and come back to it, and it brings this whole new power to it.
Mm.
And then I call it like the Pathfinder pivot. From there is like that pivoting where it's like
Mm.
you're going from one thing to the other, but if there is that depth of awareness of witnessing and watching the process and really caring about the self and the creativity, I think that's where there's so much power. And you said the master of many is the master of none kind of quote, right?
Jack of trades, master of none. Yeah.
I heard this recently. Someone told me that it's very uh, it's a common misconception that there is actually another line, that the last line is but it's often better than a master of one.
Really?
Yeah, when I heard that, I was just like, it's just that missing piece that you don't find unless you're like ready to hear it or something. You know what I mean?
Wow. Wow, that's wild. That's wild. I never knew that.
Yeah, because it's just a different way of looking at the same thing. Yeah, you can definitely judge it like, wow, you're doing too many things, you're spread too thin, and it's it's very possible that you can lose track when you're trying to juggle so many passions. But I can really relate to that. I've got a lot of things going on, and they're all very important to me. And it's just a challenge every day to really take an inventory of your time and where your time is going, and make sure that you're putting it where you want your energy to build momentum.
I have to say something because that brings up a really good point, which is each of these things, when they come, it is all consuming. Like when I discovered that animation was what I wanted, what I thought I was going to be doing for the rest of my life, it was all consuming. It was all in for years, right? It's not like at that time I was not doing 5 things, but then they sort of bleed into each other when the next thing happens to be the thing I'm doing. Then there's this new thing, which is so like podcasting was just like, oh my God, this is everything I've wanted, which is like professionally profound conversations with people that I care about that can go deep. But it was like this not curated experience, if that makes sense. Like we're not faking it. We're having these very real conversations, but it's well lit, and I have like every, everything is like pretty good. Not super professional, but like good enough, right? And so that's kind of then that became the thing. And then, and then it was comics, and I went back to my roots, and it was comics for years. So I just want to say that like uh yes, it sounds like there are a lot of things, but like they happened in their seasons. They happened in their chunks, right? They were not like all at the same time. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point because I definitely have been putting a lot more awareness on that as I, give credence to everything's so connected in my whole process. Everything is all one thing, but then I'm sort of like, all right, pull it apart, separate it.
Mm.
It slowly starts to go into categories and boxes and containers. And yeah, I just feel like from there it gets more efficient, more effective. Like the seasonal goals has become a big thing where I'm actually doing a Pathfinder Studio challenge starting on the winter solstice till the spring equinox,
Mm.
and it's a really low low commitment way to start this thing. It doesn't take much energy for me to start it,
Mhm.
and then it can just the way that a challenge or a competition can bring out a season of creativity for like a group is something that I'm experimenting with. So you could definitely hop on the challenge if you want. Essentially, I'm using TrackBear,
Mm.
which it's this site that just does really great stats for a group that has a daily goal. And so the daily goal for the whole winter will be 3 minutes of some kind of recorded audio, whether it's a podcast, whether it's um, like music, whether it's audiobooks, so like spoken word poetry. I'm really like kind of pulling the box open, where the category is usually like, okay, it's a music challenge or this is an audio book challenge. It's sort of like, let's include as many people as we can, everyone who is a recording artist. And if 3 minutes is the minimum, then the perfectionist can hop on and still feel like they're hitting the daily amount. But some people might just go crazy and do like 60 minutes, 100 minutes a day just because they've got that community competition energy behind it. So I'm excited. Really I haven't had a season in a long time where I sat down to record my own music, and I think winter has the best flavor for that. As we're all inside anyway, it's a great time to be in that kind of studio mindset. So connecting almost the time of year with the activity and like a group has become a fun kind of
Mm.
art.
So this is going to be for the Pathfinders and the mentors, or is it a separate thing? Is this like your own thing?
Yeah, it's essentially like a lot of the mentors, like you're a good example, are very much pathfinders, and that's why you're kind of attracted to quantum mentors. Is like
Mhm.
kind of have to be a pathfinder to teach a pathfinder. So in that way, there has been a lot of overlap. That's one of the things that is hard to pull apart. Like which is the fun part about it is like you're not just a teacher or just a student. You're always both, and there's kind of a profound side to that. Realizing that in the whole scheme of things. So
Mm.
so far we have Corey, who he's the treasurer of Quantum Mentors. He's a great guitarist. He's going to be on the challenge, and Colt will be on the challenge. Who he is a pathfinder in the Discord community. Records music like crazy, and
Yeah.
Zaria Spell, you might know.
Oh yeah.
She used to be in town, and she's going to do slam poetry audios. And Chevy Height,
Yep.
um, I just connected with recently, and
Vaughn.
she's into it for her rap. And Trey Good hopped on too.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've got a little group that really came out the first day that I brought it up to everybody. So between now and the solstice, we'll see who else wants to join.
Cool. That's great. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
probably I'd probably do what I'm already doing, which is like these little bite-sized astrology kind of nuggets where every day I'm kind of like I was doing it every day of the week and talking about the planets each day of the week, but like you can only do that so many times, right? And then you have to get creative. But it was like it's a lot for me to do video and audio. I wish I could just do audio. I'm not sure how that would fit into the challenge if I just did 3 minutes of audio, like because it sounds like you don't have to put it out there. It sounds like you just do it.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't
Right.
necessarily have to be polished. I called it finished, as far as like you're happy with it, as far
Mhm.
as getting the content down.
Mhm.
But I do have a new Discord server that I built out called Pathfinder Studio, which is it's like a step up from the Pathfinder Lab, which is more of a landing spot and a lifestyle thing for creatives. And the
Yeah.
studio is all geared around people talking about hardware, software, specific projects if they want to share it before they share it publicly
Mhm.
for some studio feedback and yeah, just keeping up with those challenge metrics and whatnot. So that'll be fun to kind of see what comes about with that this winter too. It's like because then you for sure the track bear helps with the community, but then to have like a landing spot where people do want to talk about it outside of the public,
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
would create like a nice little container for that.
Hmm. I love that. Um, it's funny you mentioned challenges, but I want to ask a question before I start talking about stuff. Um, is this like, it's interesting because this kind of reminds me of something that I saw a long time ago where like, a brand or like a company would have sort of like these subdivisions, like Google, for example, right? They have like these sort of like visionaries that just experiment with stuff and try to break stuff in the company. Like they literally just do weird, all sorts of things, try different things. And then there's like people who are just like working on, just the search engine. And people are working on just Gmail and people are working on just so it kind of reminds me of like the umbrella is like the Pathfinders, I guess, program, which also includes like these mini challenges and like these little and then these like regular mentorship programs where the students can come and work with the mentors and choose their own education. And then like there's got to be, I'm sure there's many things that there could be like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something like where you're doing this little festival, right? Where there's going to be a whole day of multiple mentors in one space teaching like an all day thing. Like that's kind of its own thing also, it sounds like. It
Mm-hmm.
just reminds me of that. It reminds me of like you have this parent umbrella, and you have all these subsidiary like things that you're doing that kind of have their own unique uh what I don't know process or the way they unpack the way they unfold is like completely different from each other because they're all unique in their own way.
Yeah, it's like nature, right? Like things sort of sprout in different directions as needed, it feels like, because me and Colt were in the Pathfinder lab talking about how he is currently in like a NaNoWriMo, the November National Writers Month
Yep.
challenge, and they're using TrackBear. So he posted a photo of the stats. And then I was just like, ooh, what is this? I want to know more about this. And um, I saw that he was like everyone else was here, and he was like going like way up with
Mm,
the amount of pages and words that he was writing this month just because of the challenge. And
mm,
I said, like, I remember when I was in sixth grade, we had this kind of thing for reading where all of a sudden we didn't have to read the book the teacher told us to. We could pick anything, and if we counted it, it was part of a competition. Like, I nailed that challenge. I was always like in the lead because all of
mm.
a sudden I got credit to do something I wanted to do, just however much I could do it. And so because we had this conversation naturally come up between us, I was like, Colt, I think you and I would probably just smoke each other all winter trying to outdo each other with recording. How about we do that? you know?
Mm, mm. Yeah.
Once you see that, both people have the same sort of creative need for whatever kind of community or structure, it does kind of start to sprout off a whole new idea, a whole new thing. Because the Pathfinder studio is very much based around cult specifically.
Hmm.
So I love that. I love how like even just one student for me is very impactful. Like when you find the right student for
Yeah.
you. I wonder with all your experience teaching too and mentoring in different ways and spaces and camps and college, like
Mhm.
if you have an awareness of what type of student or learner you feel like is ideal, your ideal client, so to say.
Hmm. Yeah. I was thinking about this as you were speaking because I think what ends up happening sometimes with me is you really get to know the way they learn and the way they absorb and the way they don't absorb. And I'm realizing now as I'm talking, like, you know, uh, I have a lot of different ways that I can approach mentorship. And sometimes it's going to look completely different depending on the person. And what I really like is somebody who's willing to kind of like maintain their excitement about the medium or the expression or the potency of what's there. Like I've had some, 11, 12, 13-year-old boys who are like really into animation. And for the first year, it's like wild because they'll stay late. They don't want, they just want to work on their thing all the time. I'm encouraging their parents to like get a tablet so they can work on their stuff at home, and but what happens is like after a year or so, again, this year thing, or maybe I had one student for 2 years, but he was kind of an exception. And I didn't really teach him. I was just present. And I really encouraged him to do and ask a lot of questions because he was very quiet, you know? So, but in this case, I'm thinking like all those students ended up stopping and starting something else and getting really passionate about, you know, electronic music or sports and so they completely dropped it, which to me is like could be looked at in two ways, which is one, this kind of the story of my entire the whole thing I shared on this episode, right? Is that in the periphery there's always something waiting that's gonna like come in that's gonna take over. That's gonna be so much more exciting and so much more, you know, alchemizing all the skill and the desire for expressing those skills that I already have acquired and like finding a new way to do that. But I really would like students who and Pathfinders who can understand like to not jump ahead, to realize that like the value of what you're learning right now is going to carry you and lead you and satisfy your curiosity in the next thing you end up doing. So in a way, it almost doesn't matter what they are passionate about because like if I'm working with them, like cultivating a relationship with that expression and trying to really understand what do they want to say? What do they want to express here? Because there's so many things that you could do, and animation being a good example, You could do comedy, you could do, weird sort of like abstract stuff. You could do like really serious, like thought-provoking auto bio, there's so many things you could do. Music videos. And I had a few students who I thought had huge potential who ended up kind of just dropping it and just like going to guitar and learn and that's fine. But like for me, it's ideal that somebody recognizes like to not completely drop that thing, recognizing that there's still some amount of value in learning that, even if it's not the thing you really want to do. Like you're still going to gain a lot from continuing. So it's like learning to taper off that thing while you're learning this other thing. So you're not just cold and then starting something else. I think is something that you have to learn over time. Like as we mature, we're like, you don't just like cut off a relationship and start a new one. I mean, you kind of have to like really, build these things gently and like kind of like really get to know the people you want to spend more time with and like the person you have been spending the most time with. Like if for some reason it's not a fit, like don't just cut it and just, go and live your life. I think I see this a lot right now in the world. People like having so much self-awareness that it's almost like unhealthy, where they're like, this isn't healthy for me, and then they just completely sever ties with people who actually have like been in their life and supported them for a long time, and they're just like, no, I don't like this thing that you do, so we're not going to be friends. It's like, what? That's not like that's just like not right. And it's also, I think it's the same with learning. Like you're developing this capacity to be with a project in a medium for a long time. You will pick something else up. Guaranteed. You're going to start doing something else at some point. But there's a lot you can learn from just drawing every day in life in general. Not just about perfecting your drawing skill. It's like you're learning to see the world. You're learning to perceive things the way they actually are, not the way you think they are, not the way you project onto others about how they are. So, that's a life skill that you learn forever. And drawing can teach you things that you never would have imagined about yourself. And so, I don't know. I just feel like I'm passionate about people understanding that, like, whatever you pick, you can go deep enough to learn valuable life lessons that have nothing to do with what you initially thought it was about. And the more you can open up to that possibility, the more you'll find your real calling, which probably isn't the thing that you're doing. It's probably some like way of you being yourself more authentically in that thing so that you can be more yourself.
Yes, there's so much wisdom there. Thank you for that. So I definitely find like when I'm looking at ideal clients versus like non-ideal clients, I have a lot of interesting experiences where like I love self-directed learners. Like I love people who are just they're beelining towards something.
Mm.
They zigzag for sure, but they've always sort of like you always got to beeline towards something, and then okay, now it's time to beeline towards this, and now maybe we'll beeline back this way.
Mhm.
But I find some students that I work with that are younger, especially this generation now, like there's a lot of apathy,
Yeah.
and that is not easy for me to work with kids like that. So I'm starting to learn to like I'm starting to learn to create containers that are very choose your own adventure
Mm.
because they don't see the world that way already. They don't already think, well, wow, I want to do this and wow, I want
Mhm.
to do that.
Mhm.
And it's yeah, it's an extra challenge for me. I think it's a lot more fulfilling to work with someone who does that for themselves because it's less work for the mentor, less work for everyone to
Yeah.
just go with what's naturally passionate.
Yeah.
But definitely seems to be a demand. So I find that sometimes you cater to a non-ideal student and you learn something from that too about just how to define the path
Mm.
for others that don't quite see it that way yet.
Mm. I would like to say that I also really like self-directed learn students, and I find them very challenging because I don't know where the boundary is for me to step in and, you know, get a lot of clarity as to what they're doing versus just kind of hands off, like really just be there as a support. And I know that's kind of becoming more and more popular now. Like there's a lot of mentorship and education, which is asynchronous. People are going into like online school, which is like not very hand-holdy. People are like, do the thing. It's all there. All the information is there. Read the thing, do the thing. And I get it, but like I'm going to adapt everything that I like, everything that comes out of my mouth is going to be an adaptation of what I feel the person is ready for. It's not going to be like by some script or some book or something that I think they should learn, but they don't need to because they have a different idea. And I'm like, no, you have to follow like this way. It's just like there's a whole thing that comes online with me with students, which is this subtle. guidance that's so selfless. And it's not like I don't know what I'm saying or going to say, but it does feel that way. It feels like it's emerging because they are bringing it out of me and because they're showing me what their interest is, and I can think of examples, but it's not necessary. I think you get what I'm saying. It's like students elicit the teaching response, and then there's something in me that like wants to add and share and offer this and offer that. And I'm almost more enthusiastic about teaching sometimes than they are about learning. It's like, okay, that's okay too, that has its own kind of flavor, so yeah, it's tricky. I love self-directed and I love people who are into what they're doing before I get them interested in the nuances of maybe like it's not just how to do it better. Again, I still feel it's almost like you're giving them insight into themselves, into their capacity, into what's the seed of that desire that's in them that has happens to manifest like writing songs or happens to manifest like drawing or happens to manifest like whatever. So like astrology, like someone who's really deep into that world but doesn't really like can't contain the slow like you have to slow down. You have to slow down to like really get into the nuances of these things. You can't just be rushing in, you know, full force either. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, the self-directed learning and the boundaries that you talked about are it's definitely like it's like a it's a real conjunction to to be playing it with those two things at once. And um,
Yeah.
I think that's really what quantum mentors and the music mentor is all about trying to do. And it does make teaching way more fun, I think, where some people want it to be straightforward and by the book and easy so that it's repeatable and measurable. And really, it's a huge challenge coming up with metrics that are measurable for self-directed learning and the boundaries and the bumpers involved in that. But it's a real art. Like, I think it's a real necessary art that's going to make such a big change for learners, for the potential of like, what comes from that, what kind of learner, what they choose, and how they're able to choose it. Um, I just think it's like such sacred work, working with like the freedom and the boundaries at the same time. And yeah, I think it takes a special kind of mentor to want to join quantum mentors because of that, because um, you do have to be live in the room and flexible, but you have to be decisive. You have to be constantly setting boundaries and limits for containers at the same time, and um,
Yeah.
and collaborating at that is a whole nother level, right? As two mentors. So I look forward to doing that with you at the mentor mixer and pioneering in that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. It's always so fun to have, and there is some schools who I'm sure do this. It's fun to have like disparate subjects that where you can be like, now we're doing this, now we're doing this, now we're doing this. What I'm kind of thinking and interested in, and tell me if this makes sense. It's like, is there a bleed over? Is there a crossover? Is there something that someone would get from learning if I were to teach them life drawing? Would they gain some skill at uh like writing, songwriting, or is there a way to kind of like the edges don't have to be so hard with each program, like each specific faculty, so that there's more, I don't know, meeting of the mentors, so the mentors are actually like, okay, what are your plans? Oh, well, this person is really into like, song structure. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Because like they're also really good at, you know, building things architecturally or like seeing things from the inside out. So like that's something we both see in them. And then combining forces to kind of elicit more of that skill, like support their strengths and like you can always strengthen weaknesses, but like focus on strengths, I guess, because it's more efficient.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know where I'm going with that. It's not really, it's kind of an open-ended statement slash question, but I wonder how you feel about there being some cross-pollination between that, different programs and yeah.
Yeah. When you were talking about it, it made me realize too that um, the way education usually starts is with boundaries, and then you find the freedom within those boundaries. Where with what we're doing here, it's totally the opposite. That it's you start with the freedom and you find the boundaries within the freedom. So
Mm.
it's always good when you find another way to qualify it for people that are trying to put their finger on, well, what is this and how is it the same and how is it different?
Mm.
Um, because it reminds me of what you said earlier too about um, when an animation student would just drop off and like maybe would get really into guitar. I
Yeah.
think that's a really good example of like why it's awesome to have multiple interdisciplinary mentors within a network, because not only can they learn more than say just animation from one mentor. If they want to take a break from animation, they could still work with you if they wanted to on maybe Jodish or whatever else it is that you could think to offer, but then also if they even maybe just want a break from working with you. You know, it's possible that it's not about animation, it's about wanting a break from a certain mentor. Then they could stay within the mentor network. They could say, learn guitar from me and maybe learn something different from me and then go back to you because they get something different from everybody. And it doesn't always have to be um, like a permanent mentorship,
Mm.
have a permanent relationship with lifelong learning. It's the way I was thinking of it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it gets really exciting in that way. um, to see the potential for the cross pollination and you know
Mm.
you really just it's really just a phenomenon. You kind of like watch it happen based on what someone needs and then it defines the system that it's a part of.
That's really cool. That's really different. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, there's probably things that I haven't even thought that I could teach that I could offer, but that's what's also really interesting, you know? It's quantum disciplinary. It's not interdisciplinary. And even that word is so boring. Disciplinary. My God. It's like, what? What are these academic words that sound like you're being punished, you know, all the time?
Yeah, like interest-based learning is one that's a little softer, it's a little sweeter.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Very popular. People don't use it that much.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is fun to teach, and I think there is kind of this interesting balance between like, privilege and having like power and having like a position of authority and then having the students be like make sure they're empowered. And I think that's been my biggest like takeaway with going to both a private school and then like a art school. And then I was in I studied a lot on my own. Uh is that like this thing that we're trying to do to give people knowledge is just old. It's outdated. It's weird. It's very patriarchal. It's very top down, you know, and it's frustrating because I think a lot of people don't want to act that way. They don't want to be that way, but they don't know how not to. They don't know how to be a person and a teacher. It's like, because who's going to take you seriously? And you have all this power. You gotta like, you don't want to mess it up. So there's a lot. There's a lot. I know I just opened a whole nother thing, but it's always on my mind, like I always try to start my classes out with like soft, not I wouldn't even call it self-depreciating, but soft jabs at myself because it's like you're looking at me for this. You're here saying I'm here to learn from this guy, and I'm like, yeah, but moreover, you're just here to be an open vessel, but this is only going to work if you elicit that same response from me and it's a back and forth. There has to be an equal exchange. Like if you're not, and it's not just like, oh, if you don't do the work, I'm not going to like put any energy into you. It's like, if you're open-minded, there is so much more I could give. if you meet me with a kind of energy of like, I'm just here because my mom wants me to be here to learn, or because I don't know what else to do with my life, it's going to be a very different experience for you.
Mhm.
It's just not the same. Like your that attitude is going to change everything. So yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much there. Like, it's definitely a challenge in branding. Like you said, there's like a professionalism that you usually see in branding.
yeah,
I'm trying to lose it and find that line between, yeah, someone approachable, someone reachable, someone funny, someone that seems like a friend, but then also has the professionalism
yeah,
kind of there ready to back it all up. And even branding multiple disciplines, is really difficult. Like, at least for me, still, it's a difficult part of the process, which is why I go with Music Mentor. I chose that because I wanted music to be up front, because I think of all the things that I do,
mm,
it's the most eye-catching, it's the most marketable, it's the most like connected one
mm,
that I can do a lot with the community very easily. So that would be something to think about too, is like, of all the different things that you learn and teach, like what one is the most like visible? What one's the most like approachable and like exciting or fun or connected? It's a challenge to kind of like
yeah,
brand your ego with one thing when your whole thing is about being a whole person. But
right.
there's a lot of paradoxes in branding and business, and
Oh yeah,
especially approaching it this way.
yeah. I mean, you should look at my Instagram. It's artist Gene Key's guide, which I'm not even going to get into here. Vedic astrologer, and he used to be somatic practitioner and I'm moving towards somatic therapist. So totally different worlds. How's the algorithm ever going to find me? You know, and it's just not. So yeah, you know, there is a threat, there is a through line. I'm going to have to think about it and get back to you on it, but there is a through line between all these things. And I don't know what that is yet, but when I think of it, I'll tell you.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Like a
Uh,
word is like a word, there's some phrase or some short word that goes through all of that. It goes through animation, astrology, comics, somatic movement, podcasting. Like yeah, something. I'm not sure what it is, but
yeah, the way that I'm, chipping away at it, and it's kind of starting to build into something, I was fighting with it a little bit, but I thought I wanted to use Publishing Mentor in some capacity, because I'm in a creative professional writing program, MFA. I'm going into a publishing internship this winter, and I'm all excited about it. Writing, I think, is just as important as music my whole life, and it's a lot more boring. It's a lot quieter. It's a lot of a solitude kind of. It's not really like a let's do this together. It's gonna be fun kind of thing.
yeah.
So I thought of the publishing mentor.
Hmm.
Part of me just didn't want to even use that word, because it's like I don't feel really passionate about publishing. I feel passionate about sharing. I feel passionate about expressing, and it is a real challenge to find that one right word, that it has the professionalism to it, but it also has the heart behind it. So I went with Pathfinder Mentor. Like, when I talk about my private business, it's the Music Mentor, and when I talk about teaching within the nonprofit, it's the Pathfinder Mentor.
Very
So
cool.
that's the split for now. That's making the most sense. But as things slowly define themselves, I'm sure that there's going to be more of like a, what do they call it? Like a customer journey. That's similar to that
Mm,
choose your own education, choose your own adventure
mm,
experience.
nice.
Start simple, but then to be able to, oh, if someone wants to click into that, it will branch out, and click into that, it will branch out.
I get it. Cool. I do. It's very um it's very rich what you're doing. You know, I don't have like a good phrase for it, but it feels like um, there's a level of depth and intentionality that is like clearly needed. And you know how much better, I don't know, like we have some pretty solid people already, but this seems like something that could, you know, really get the attention of like the education board or something, you know, like this is something that could grow a lot. It seems like, it feels like, so very cool. Yeah, and I'll definitely see you at the mixer. When is that again? You want to?
I'm gonna start those in January, so
Okay.
maybe
Okay.
probably a couple Saturdays in January. But yeah, we
Okay.
can talk about the date.
Perfect. Yes. I'll be back for it.
All right, thanks for joining today.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome. That was really fun.
beginning of a good mentoring mentors.
Mentoring mentors. Fireworks to that.